This time, let's take a look at a game that's completely forgotten about, completely overlooked. Today's game on Hibiki QUICKIE is The Bouncer, released for the PS2 in 2000 by Square. Well, let's travel back in the year 2000 upon the PS2's release. For those of you that remember the time, people were so hyped. I mean, damn, this is one of the most hyped game console releases I ever remember. And with damn good reason. The PS2 brought a whole new level of gameplay and the addition of a built-in DVD player, which at the time blew people's goddamn minds. And the launch titles for the PS2, people were initially excited about, but once they actually play them, the bottom fell out. Needless to say, the PS2 wasn't exactly graced with stellar AAA launch titles at the time. And to be quite honest, the only two titles in my opinion worth your time for the launch of the PS2 were Tekken Tag Tournament and Time Splitters. The Bouncer was a complete departure from what Square normally put out. This was not a turn-based RPG, not a grand, epic-scaled fantasy world. It kinda was, but The Bouncer was a straight-up beat-em-up. Now, at the Tokyo Game Show in '99, it was first announced that there was an unannounced title for the PS2 being released by Square that wasn't an RPG, more of an action game. And it was finally unveiled that it would be a beat-em-up, well, with more RPG story elements, kind of like you're watching an action movie. Co-director of the game, Takashi Tokita, made a quote that said the selling point of the action game is the feeling of oneness with the character, but on the other hand, action games lack characterization and story development. RPGs cover most of that narrative, but sacrifice the tempo, thrill factor, and the feeling of immediacy. The Bouncer system is a combination of the best elements of these two genres. That's what they were going for. But quite honestly, what panned out at the end of the day was very, very subpar and mediocre. Let's take a look. Now, true to the namesake of the game, it is centered around one of the most unlikely heroes in gaming history, actual bouncers at a club. Sion, the main protagonist, is very lamely designed, as much every other character in this game, in my opinion. It definitely screams that late 90s, early 2000s, too cool for school design, and I don't like it at all. Also, as expected, the voice acting flat out sucks. It's not good, it's lame, it's poorly done.
Not again. I'll teach that thing a lesson. Dominique's right here. You think I plan on losing you now?
The sour face, you're scaring away the customers.
Sorry, just doing my job.
Yeah.
Now, the graphics and soundtrack, on the other hand, for the time, the graphics were great. The FMV were mind-blowing, and that was very passable. The soundtrack is timeless, and it's good action-themed, up-tempo music. Now, because the characters in the game, in my opinion, are very uninspired, lame, and just flat-out not interesting, that comes to my biggest problem with The Bouncer, the length of the game. Without the cutscenes in the game, you can literally beat this game in about an hour and a half. Now, you may say to yourself, what the hell does the character development and how interesting they are have to do with the length of the game? Well, it affects it because there's multiple endings to the game. It's so short, and Square did this because you can go back and play each character's story through, but they're not interesting enough for me to want to invest in that. So one single playthrough with the main protagonist is good enough for me. The playability is quite good for the time. It's a little slow, sluggish feeling, but once you get into it, you get into it. With the addition of leveling up your movesets, switching between your characters during play, it really adds an extra layer that the game desperately needed. If it didn't have the leveling up aspect, I can only shudder to think how much more mundane and boring this game would have been. Besides the length of the game, another huge factor in this game just not delivering, in my opinion, is that camera. I know some games from when they were released in an era get a pass, like your Tomb Raiders, but man, the camera in The Bouncer for a game in 2000 is unforgivable. The game is not difficult. It shouldn't be difficult, but it's only really made to feel like it's difficult because of the sluggishness and the misplacement of the camera. And I'm not the only one who thought this. At the time, the game was panned with mediocre to subpar reviews at best. It wasn't very well received, and it was a major disappointment, especially with all the hype Square liked to put around this game at the time. Obviously, Square would go on to much bigger and better things, and they never looked back on the bouncer. It never saw a re-release, it never saw a sequel, it never saw any of that stuff. So this is the bouncer for the PS2. At the time, a glorified Final Fight game with enhanced graphics and cutscenes. Basically, that's all it really was, although the characters in Final Fight were a hell of a lot more cooler. Check it out in Hibiki Quickie next time. We're going to take a look at the SNES. Hey guys, you can follow me on Twitter at the HibikiTMD. Check out the Hibiki TMD Facebook group for everything retro gaming, pro wrestling podcasts, and everything in between. Thanks for watching another video, and thanks for stopping by on Hibiki TMD.